Today I'm reacting to terrifying tales of cosplay, all submitted by users over on the Spacecraft Discord. This year I actually decided to animate the horror stories for the main video, but because that took an entire month, it meant I could only do 6 of them. So this is this year's non-animated horror stories. A happy spooky season. This first story comes from Anonymous. Like many cosplay horror stories, this one takes place at my very first convention. I was dressed up in a black bodysuit, on top of which desperately clung a white, hot glued top that I had constructed the week before. Nevertheless, I was real ecstatic to be dressed up in what I considered, at the time, my first real cosplay. I was Katie A. Ari, at the time, recent internet viral music video. The pièce de résistance resting on my hips was Ari's crystal tails. Naturally, I decided to enter my very first cosplay contest. I would only have 30 seconds to be on stage without audio, and we had to wait an hour before the contest started. In hindsight, this is pretty standard. At the time, though, I was pretty bummed about it, as I wanted to attend a random dance panel during the same time. For anybody that doesn't know, a random dance panel or random dance play is a panel where a group of people will get together and they will just play literally random music, usually from K-pop, and anybody at the panel that knows the dance can run up to the front and start dancing. And nobody expects you to be really good at the dance. Nobody expects you to know the entire thing. So anyway, nevertheless, I stuck it out and started figuring out my poses for the stage. Just as quickly as they came, my nerves washed away as I heard KDA's Pop Stars blasting at full volume from the next room. After encouragement from others, I jumped out of my seat and ran into the other room. It was the random dance panel that I wanted to go to. I hopped in right during the chorus, the only part I knew. I am not a dancer, and this was the first dance I'd ever learned, so this was pretty scary for me. Just as the chorus ended, the crowd started cheering, and I left the room in embarrassment. After this, the cosplay contest didn't seem so scary. So when my name was called, I was still full of adrenaline from earlier. I ran on the stage, and in surprise to myself, and probably also the audience, I started belting off a line from Pop Stars. Ain't nobody bringing us down, 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 down. Parentheses, I am not a singer. And then I heard a loud thud. I turned around to see my tail had fallen off my belt and onto the floor. I stared at it for a split second in utter shock, and then I quickly picked it up and ran off stage as the heat started rising in my cheeks. In the end, I didn't win anything, but I was happy to have at least put myself out there and participated. Side note, I am cringe, but I am free! And I was glad it was finally over, or so I thought. 2 of the girls from the dance panel had come to tell me what I had done was very inappropriate. Confused, I started apologizing, but was cut off by the second girl. This is when the dread started settling in, as I realized that the panel had not been a random dance play. It was, in fact, a performance. Amongst my horror, I began to profusely apologize and tried explaining the situation. One of the girls was understandably pissed off. Later on, an older woman, I assume it was one of the girls' moms, stopped me in the dealer's room to berate me. And no matter how much I apologized, this lady kept going off. I had tears in my eyes and I had to walk away. I tried to enjoy the rest of the con after that, but I was genuinely horrified the entire day. And this was the story of my first con. Abridged version, no matter how long this may be. If this makes the video, I do just want to say I'm still sorry to those girls. I'm sure they are doing great things these days. I hope someone can not only learn from my mistakes, but also in regards to my first convention or cosplay contest, it might be cringe, but that's okay. Aww. It sounds like you were excited about your first con, and you made a mistake, and you did do something inappropriate, but it wasn't your intention to mess up their performance. This story comes from Anonymous. I'm going to start off by saying that I've been to well-done college conventions. However, when a college con has been going on for 10 years and they're still making rookie mistakes, that says something. For starters, this con was this year, 2024, and I was only planning on going on Saturday, since I wanted to compete in the cosplay contest in their performance category. I was doing Nikki Sheena from N-Stars in his USA cosplay. I only found out about this con through word of mouth, since their only social media was through Facebook and their own personal website. Although signups for the cosplay contests were out months in advance, they did not sell tickets until the Tuesday before the con. They also did not announce guests until the same week, and only informed artists that would be in the artist alley that they made it in 2 weeks beforehand. The schedule was also only available on a Google Sheets document that anyone could go in and edit. When I got to the con, there were no signs at all about parking or what buildings the con was being held in, and I only found my way around thanks to a friend who attends that college. The food choices there were for students and faculty only. They had also split the artist alley into 3 separate rooms. Gotta work with the space given. However, they only had one singular small sign to state that there were 3 different artist alleys. I had planned on going to one panel and the idol showcase, since I thought it would be hilarious since I'm also cosplaying an idol. They had no staff at the door checking badges, and the person that was running the panel never showed. We found out through the spreadsheet that the time slots for events and the description of the events had 2 different names put down for who was running the idol showcase. I was the one that ended up telling the staff, and I only told them 45 minutes after it was supposed to start, and the panel was only for an hour. Finally, the costume contest. Oh boy, where do I start? Because they were using the room for other panels, I had 0 time to practice my skit on the stage. So only then did I get to know the dimensions of the stage and the space I was given to perform. I learned from another performer who had turned in their audio weeks ahead of time that they had rejected their audio because it was 5 seconds over the allowed time limit, but they did not inform them of this until the morning of the competition. Because of that, the performer had to send in another audio that was chopped down, and because of that, they had to re-choreograph the entire thing. Once we got to the show, we were not told our order or anything until 5 minutes before the show. They also only had a lecture room to work with, since their main stage was getting work done. There was no MC, however, at least one judge was a professional cosplayer. During the awards, the winners got a paper saying they won, and either got the choice of getting a trinket or a bag of candy. This is not meant to diminish college conventions. I want more college conventions to happen. However, if a con has been running for over 10 years and is still making rookie mistakes, that's when I expect change. Do better, please. Oh, what's interesting, and I don't think a whole lot of people know this, is MomoCon started as a college convention. It started at Georgia Tech. I believe it was run by like the anime club, and it grew into this amazing staple anime convention, well, anime, comic, and gaming convention in Atlanta. And it's one of my favorites, and it has its roots as a college con. But you know, if you are a college con and you run it well enough, you should be looking at MomoCon to see, like, that's what you can grow to. You can be a big, giant money-making convention, even if you just start as a college convention, if you play your cards right. This next story isn't a horror at all. It's about my endless quest to become a better artist and the largest online community for creatives. And it comes from today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare has thousands of classes led by industry experts in everything from illustration and design to film and productivity. And the great thing about Skillshare is the learning paths. These are curated sequential class collections that are designed to help you master a specific skill. So if you want to improve your skill at, like, knitting, you won't have to go searching for classes, because Skillshare has it all right there for you. I've been going down this learning path because while I recently learned how to knit, I still don't know anything besides knit and purl, and I mean, I've also been checking out big-time YouTuber MKBHD's class on YouTube Success, so I can get tips from the big boys. Plus, if you're just back in school and you're taking a class with a software that you maybe aren't super familiar with, Skillshare actually lets you search by software now. So you can easily find the classes that you need to make up for your terrible After Effects professor that doesn't teach you anything and at no point ever says the word pre-comp the entire time you take the class. Like mine did. I guess this did turn into a horror story. But not really, because Skillshare is here to save the day. So if you're interested, listen up, because the first 500 people to use the link in my description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. This next story comes from insert name. That's literally their name. Okay, I have to come in and paraphrase the setup to this story because the front half had so many typos that I wasn't able to understand it or read it coherently. I remembered that I pulled my friend's big off. I don't. What the f does this mean? But all you need to know is that this person and a friend were locked outside their hotel room and were waiting for another friend to bring them the room key. They were also being kind of loud and rowdy in the hallway, and then some stranger opens the door across the hall. It was a man in his 20s, shirtless. He stared at us for a bit, which was understandable since he clearly wasn't a part of the con, and we were in these big costumes. We continued to mess around, and he just went back inside his hotel room. The same door opened up again, but now it was a different man. We again didn't think anything of it, and went back to messing around while our friend was trying to get in contact with their dad. The door opened a third time, and it was the first man again, and he said with a dead serious tone, "Wanna come in and fuck?" Oh. We were literally standing there speechless. I made the dumb mistake of saying, "I'm a X-year-old." Looking back, I should have just said I was a minor, but I was panicking. He looked at me and went, "Okay," as if it wasn't an issue. And then he turned to start taking his pants off, and we didn't really know what to do. My friend shouted some really bad things at him, and eventually the door shut and we ran away. We told my guardian and they told the hotel staff, and we didn't see the people again for that day or the next, but it was still quite scary. Ooh. I don't know what to say about that one, but that's pretty horrifying. This story comes from Edgar Vallen's painting. I was at a con and I was cosplaying from Bendy and Alice from Bendy and the Ink Machine. I had made my Alice cosplay, and to go with it, I had made an axe from the game that the character Sammy Lawrence had because it would have been easier to carry around the convention. At one point, I put my axe down for a few seconds to pay for something in the artist alley, and then I go to hold it again, and my axe is gone. I start to panic because I worked a whole month on it. Not to mention one of the staff broke it by accident when they checked my stuff at the entrance and I had to run to go buy super glue. We asked some people around because I genuinely start to panic and feel like crying, but no luck. We asked the staff too, and they didn't know either, and I ended up never finding it. My face paint also ended up being a mess due to having to run around the convention to look for my axe. Oh. This next story comes from Araziel. My fiance and I met through cosplay. We were at a small local convention with me cosplaying Dobby from My Hero Academia and him cosplaying one of the characters from Heaven's Official Blessing. I'm probably gonna say this wrong.
Xie Liang.
Very odd combo, I know, but because of that, we wanted to cosplay Dobby and Hawks together for our first convention together. I had already competed a little bit and had competed in past craftsmanship contests outside of cosplay, so I had an idea of competitive quality. I was living in my college dorm at the time, and we had gotten passes for a convention about 2 hours away from us. I'm used to driving far, so this doesn't bother me. With my unfortunate luck, all my finals were the same week. Because of this, if I wasn't in class, I was either working on the cosplays or studying. After 4 all-nighters back to back, we finally made it to the convention for the competition. We were tired, but really excited because a cosplayer that had inspired us to start cosplaying was the main judge. Arcos? Not to mention, Yaya Han was the MC. We finally got there and are putting on my fiance's 70% hot glue wings. when we realized that my wig was left 2 hours away back in the dorm. On top of that, his wings broke in the prejudging line and I had to sew and duct tape them together in line. And I forgot our build books that almost made us late because they were printing. I had a mental breakdown right there in line, especially because my fiance didn't know why I put so much pressure on this competition. There was a ring in my pocket that I planned to propose on stage. I had already coordinated with the con to make sure it was okay the day before. It was too late to turn back, so we sucked it up and went through judging. Although we stood no chance of winning or placing, Yaya still was part of the proposal. AKR still talked to us personally and gave us personal tips, and my fiance still said yes. Word of advice, don't con crunch and make lists. Oh, that's still a cute story. You know, it probably wasn't fun to have a mental breakdown in the moment, but now you have a really funny proposal story to tell people for the rest of your life. This next story comes from It's Hack C. They say, trigger warning, it's gross. I took a cosplay hiatus during the pandemic, and in 2022, I was finally depressed enough to know I needed to express my art. So I started building a cosplay. Because I was a grown-up in my 30s now, I wanted to do something a little more revealing and chose Bido from Genshin Impact. Because she's cool and hot and right up my alley. I started crafting this cosplay to debut it at a con that would take place a week after my sister's wedding, which I was part of. I was responsible and making great progress and had chosen some really expensive fabrics, suede, and leather for details. I was 90% of the way complete with this cosplay, but I had to stop progress with 2 weeks before the competition to do emergency fittings on the bridesmaid dresses. Oh, were you also doing like sewing stuff for this wedding? Ooh, that's stressful. The morning before the wedding, I came down to my sewing space and was met with a god-awful smell. Gagging, I tried to find what the smell was. I found it relatively quickly. And for some backstory, I had a sick cat at the time. She had become so sick that she decided that the litter box was too far away and instead decided to have mass amounts of diarrhea all over my cosplay. Oh no. And it's made of suede. The cosplay that was 90% done. The cosplay that was made of suede. I immediately tried to clean it, but it was ruined and I still had a wedding that I had to attend. So I attended the wedding while holding back tears, not because of the wedding, but because I had poured so much time, money, and energy, and the con was in 5 days. The day of the wedding, I immediately went to the fabric store, got cheaper fabric, and spent less than 5 days and nights working almost non-stop. I completed the cosplay, not well, but headed off to the con and the competition. During cosplay judging, I was so embarrassed by how rushed it was that I almost started crying, but explained that I had 5 days to crunch the cosplay out due to poop. To make matters even worse with the cursed cosplay, when I did my walk-on for the competition, I was brave and tried to do a spin in stilettos. I don't normally wear heels at all. In slow motion, my feet went over my head and I busted my butt on the stage in front of everyone. I guess it all worked out, because I got a minor award, which the show gives to a cosplayer who showed tenacity and grit in the process of making their cosplay. Let's go! But a word to the wise. Bido's backstory explains that the villagers believe she is cursed. I think maybe the curse of Bido is real, because I almost lost a toenail because of those shoes. It grew back, thank God. Wow. Oh, your poor kitty cat. This just reminds me of one time I got a text from Pins that was like, cat peed on wig. What do? We've got another anonymous story, and this one's pretty short. When I was 15, I was cosplaying Sarah Chidoin from Your Turn or Die, and my friend was cosplaying Joe Tazuna from the same game. They both wear high school uniforms, with Sarah's consisting of a blue blazer, green checkered tie, red skirt, and purple thigh-high socks. This description is relevant for later. We were at the con together, and at one point we split up in the artist alley, just looking at different booths. I stopped to look at one booth when I felt a tap on my shoulder. Then I turned around and there was this older man, probably 30s or 40s, completely decked out in a full... I don't know if I'm allowed to say this word. How do I describe this? You know those shirts that have lots of girls on them? They make pants of these too. Those fabric prints that just have girls on them with their mouths open and they're drooling. Those. He was decked out in that. The sweatshirt, the sweatpant, you name it. He had a camera and said, "Let me get a photo real quick, gorgeous," and snapped a photo and walked away before I could say anything or pose properly. I was mostly just like, what just happened? And I was confused at first at how quick it was, but I shrugged it off, and it didn't seem like a big deal. It wasn't until later that I was talking with Joe that it clicked just how creepy the situation was and the implications of everything together. Years later, it doesn't bother me much, but it mostly weirded me out by the fact that he thought that that was a completely acceptable thing to do. Yeah, if you're going to take a picture of a cosplay, you don't just say, "I'm going to take a picture of you now, thank you." You say, "May I take a picture of you? Can I take a picture of you?" You ask. Not everybody wants their picture taken all the time or by any person. And to cosplayers, you're allowed to say no to anyone for any reason. You don't have to have a reason. You don't have to give anybody a reason. You can literally just say no, and that should be it. This next story comes from Cosicle, or Matt. This one says, "Warning for alcohol and very uncomfortable flirting in advances." To paint the scene, it's Anime St. Louis 2021, the largest convention in the St. Louis area with over 8,000 attendees and growing. It was Friday evening. The convention was in full swing, both the convention center and the connected hotel. Myself and a couple of friends had headed to their hotel room to touch up makeup, fix wigs, and last-minute costume fixes before our panel. It was a character dating panel, so we wanted to look our best. It's an 18+ panel, and at ASTL badges plus legal ID. What's an ASTL badges? Is that just like an 18+ wristband? Anyway, you're supposed to have your legal ID at the door to get into the 18+ event. Everything is chill until I realize, oh no, my wallet is in the room. Ah well, I figured. Told the gang I was going to go up to the room to grab my ID, and I'd meet them at the panel room. What a fool I was. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs between their hotel room and ours, walked to the back corner furthest from the stairs and elevators. This will be relevant later. Head to our hotel room, grab my ID, all is well. And I'm walking back to the door when suddenly there's a series of knocks. Not surprising, figured it was a friend or my roommate. I open the door, all excited to see my friends, only to be greeted by a gaggle, about 7 or 8, older teenage, college, freshman-aged boys, all towering over me. My smile quickly drops. I had no idea who these people are. Alcohol and money are sitting openly in our kitchen and living room areas that they can easily see behind me. The gaggle kept pressuring me that they had heard that our room was where a party was being held. Con room parties are nothing new at this con, so I simply said, "No, but I know there's one 2 floors down, that room with the lights on. But we want in here. Let us in here for a few drinks. You've got plenty." I quickly pulled my door closed, putting myself in the center of this group of giants. I walked over to the banister that overlooks the hotel atrium, and I pointed down to the room that had flashing party lights and an open door. "That's the party room. Now I have to go to a panel, sorry." And I start walking away, feeling the prickling on my skin of a scary interaction, but it was all over. I start rounding the corner. I can see the elevators. I am 6 hotel doors until freedom and my friends. The safe place that I could put all this behind me. Instead, the group had been checking out our hotel room still. Hanging up in our hotel window, Embassy Suites have windows that look out into the hotel. We have a Vash the Stampede Wanted poster, which just so happens to be the exact cosplay I was wearing. A funny thing to help our friends find our room never ended so terribly. The gaggle of large built boys start running towards me, screaming about how they want that money and how they had found Vash. So I start running. I figured I had enough of a head start that I could make it to the elevators to where I saw another person. My savior. I get there, give the stranger the most help me face I could muster as this large group is screaming and running after me. The elevator door dings, we both step in, and the group runs in last minute, making the door open again. I already wanted out, had moved out of the elevator when content warning, uncomfortable advances, uncomfortable touching of face. The leader of the group slams an arm onto the door of the elevator to keep me from exiting. Then grabbing my face, forcibly turning my head to watch as he slides his other hand down the buttons, selecting every floor. And then he says, "I want to spend more time together, cutie." Safe to say, fight or flight was activated. Jerked my face out of his hold, got my hand into the smallest crack in the closing elevator door, pulled and willed it to open faster, running straight for the stairs, taking 2, 3, sometimes even 4 at a time to get away, my body not even feeling as I went down 13 flights and ran into the con center to my friends. Thankfully, I ran into my BF, maybe boyfriend, maybe best friend, who quickly calmed me down from the adrenaline high of a lifetime and the scariest thing I've ever had happen to me at a convention. We reported the group to the con and the hotel staff after our panel, which went really well, even though I was shaking. But let this story be a warning to always have a buddy with you. Never go by yourself. The buddy system wins. I agree, buddy system. And report people to the con. When people do bad things, tell the con. I don't know who this next one's from or if they wanted to be anonymous. Me and my family host a huge Halloween party every year. This year, I had invited 2 of my friends to celebrate, which is pretty rare. One of my friends had a gorgeous original character cosplay of a spider witch. It had a short skirt and white embroidered spider webs on it, and she had a fake spider attached to her shoulder via a safety pin. My other friend was a book standard vampire lady with a cape. She isn't really a cosplayer, so she had one of those standard spirit Halloween costumes. I, on the other hand, of course, had to go overboard. I was cosplaying Wilbur Soot from the Dream SMP, since I was deep into that phase at the time. I made a huge brown trench coat. I made a yellow jumper out of cotton jersey and even made fingerless gloves for myself. I also wore a short brown curly wig and a bald cap over my wig cap. I don't know what this character looks like, but okay. However, I also made myself a latex prosthetic that covered half of my face so that I could make it look like my face had been stitched together, because the guy is like an undead half zombie in most of the fan art I saw. My friends and I proceeded to enjoy some alcoholic drinks at a bar that the party was at. So after we had some stuff in our system, one of us had the great idea to visit another friend of mine who lived a 20 to 30 minute walk away. The only problem was that we had to walk on the actual road, because it was basically similar to a freeway. So we were a spider queen, a cheap vampire, and a half zombie walking down the side of the freeway. Honestly, y'all should be very proud that you didn't drive drunk and that you were willing to walk on the side of the freeway in silly costumes. Many cars passed by, many strange looks were given to us, until we reached the street my other friend lived on. However, one car stopped suddenly next to us. The guy in the car had seen the spider costume of one of my friends, and his kid really wanted a picture. What is important to know is that the guy and the child had only seen the side of my face that was still normal looking, and I don't think they had seen the other side of my face that looked gross, or my fake knife. I turned around because my Spider Queen friend wanted all of us in the picture. I will never forget the look from the guy and his child when they saw the other side of my face. I lived in Germany, and elaborate Halloween costumes are not something you see often. He took the picture and quickly drove off. The best of this, however, is when we arrived at my other friend's house, she wasn't home. We, however, needed to be sure that she wasn't home, and in our slightly drunk heads, didn't think it would be suspicious if we walked around the house with our phone flashlights looking for God knows what at this point. I ended up staying at the front door sitting on the porch, playing with my prop because I was bored. Then, however, the same guy in the car drove by the house, so what he saw is me playing with what he might have thought was a real knife, and my two other friends looking around the windows with flashlights. He wasn't local, which I could tell by his license plate, so this guy didn't know me or my friends. Me and my friend group are rather well known, as it's a smaller town. So guess what? He actually called the police. The officers arrived and immediately questioned us, because I will admit, it was rather sketchy looking. I tried explaining to them that what I had wasn't an actual knife and that they weren't trying to break into that house. They ended up giving us a ride to the police station because I was 16 at the time and it had turned out to be 12 a.m. and y'all were drinking. Okay, y'all were in Germany. I don't know what the legal drinking age in Germany is, but I don't think it's 16. Apparently, you cannot be outside without a guardian at 16 in Germany. Explaining the whole story to my mother, as well as the look on her face when she entered the police station, is something I will never forget. Not to mention that the other officers also called our other friends' parents, so that they had to schlep all the way to the police station. The disappointment and confusion in the room was so damn intense. Also, my prosthetic face mask also fell off at one point in the police station while my mom was there. So that was fun. I don't recommend. Oh, don't drink if you're not legal age. No. I don't know what it is in Germany, but I don't think it's 16. Alright, this story comes from Undead Alice on Instagram. This is the story about my first handmade cosplay, aka my cursed cosplay. No clue why it was cursed, but I have a hunch it was because of only using Walmart cotton and the pinch parentheses bucket of Sprite I poured into it. Oh, spite. I thought you meant bucket of literal Sprite. Heed my warnings and don't repeat what I've done. Backstory. This is coming off a bad friendship breakup the year before with the person who got me into cosplay. So for my first handmade cosplay, I wanted to prove myself as someone who could also make crazy cool cosplays just like them. I had very little knowledge of sewing, so the audacity bone in my body decided to make the wonderful 2020 magical Mirai Miku. Keep in mind, Miku wig, definitely important later. Starting in mid-June, I made a little progress until I just stopped. So I decided the best time to finish it would be in December, 1 week before the con. So 80% of a massive cosplay was done by someone who knew nothing in that week. Unstyled wig, so many seams showing, bows hot glued on, skirt held up by safety pins, the stereotypical first cosplay, but hey, we all start somewhere. So I also had the wonderful idea of competing in the cosplay contest 3 days before. So we went early, and I got stuck in an incredibly long line to get our badges, so I was extremely late to the contest registration. But eventually I did get a spot thanks to an amazing volunteer. Now you're probably wondering what went wrong. Constantly struggled to get my bag on enough because of the sleeves, ended up just sticking my arms through the armpit holes and using that as a way to get to my bag, had to hand sew a hole that I had accidentally cut in the sleeve mid-con because I didn't want to before the con, lost the same accessory 3 times, found it on the floor the first time, found it in the lost and found the second, and permanently lost it before the comp because I gave up on it. My shirt wrap thing wouldn't stay up, so I had it permanently safety pinned to my sports bra that was showing the entire time, got asked by my boss to go into work, instead sent her a photo of me in full cosplay with the worst angle and facial expressions. And here comes the competition. This is my first time ever competing, so I didn't know about build books or what I was supposed to say. We were given times to return and wait, and when it was my time, the judges were so backed up that I ended up waiting an extra 2 hours in line. They would have 2 of us in the room at a time, 1 waiting in the corner and 1 actively being judged. According to the cosplayer in front of me, the judges were extremely rude. While to me, they were decent, I think they were just trying not to break my heart. I didn't know the judges were supposed to look at the cosplays up close until a couple months later, as neither of the judges moved the entire judging. Exhausted, it was time for lineup and going backstage. My cosplay didn't have pockets, so my friends had my phone to record me. It took an extra hour to get everything going, and I was at the end of Novice, so I got to see all the Journeymen and Masters. Only issue, as I previously stated, I didn't have my phone, so I had no clue where my friends were. And the area with the other competitors had that friend that I refused to be around. Remember the friendship breakup from the beginning? It came back. So I was resigned to standing in the back corner, barely able to see anything. Eventually, I did find my friends after the competition. Best part? The cosplay had the last laugh. As looking back at the video my friends got, my petticoat had fallen down without me knowing, and wearing a heavy Miku pigtail wig for 12 hours gave me a migraine, causing me to puke in the parking garage and suffer the hour drive home. Oh, poor Miku. Yeah, that's, I can relate to a Miku migraine. That is all the stories that I picked out from the spacecraft this year, but I also always end horror stories with one of my own. And since we had so many creepy men in all of those, I figured I'd tell you one of my interactions I've had with an unfortunately creepy man. So, years and years ago, I did a cosplay of Momo from My Hero Academia, and I did her like standard first outfit. It's like a little red bodysuit that is fully cut open in the front and her boobs are just out. And I didn't want to do it with like an illusion mesh or like a spandex panel. So what I did with that thing is, and I don't recommend this at all because this is a horror story, in the hem of the cutout, I had fed in something like 10 or 12 gauge wire, like really thick, really strong wire. It was super sturdy and it did keep the cutout where it was supposed to be, but the problem was that Momo's cutout goes from like, you know, here all the way down to like under your belly button. And what I had done was it basically went all the way up and then hooked under like, she had something up here that I had like the wire basically hooked onto itself so that I could put it on and then hook the wire so the cutout would stay where it was supposed to. Anyway, so I had like 10 gauge wire from neck to belly button. And as you can imagine, I couldn't sit down at all. It was one of the most uncomfortable cosplays I have ever made, and I would never do that to myself again, and I would not recommend that if you were trying to make that cosplay that is what you do. I think you should probably just go with some power mesh in the middle. But nonetheless, I went with wire, and it was uncomfortable, and I can't even show you this because I'll have to cover it up, but my boobs did look amazing. My tits look great. They sat where they were supposed to. The wire held them just like Momo's, just like perfectly placed in the middle with the cleavage looking amazing. Well, thing was, I decided to wear that cosplay to Dragon Con that year. Dragon Con is a great con, but Dragon Con also has a lot of people that attend it that don't really know cosplay etiquette. It also has a lot of creepy men that are not usually in the con community. Dragon Con attracts a lot of just like Atlanta locals that come to party, and those people can be some of the worst interactions that you get at Dragon Con. There are a lot of really great people that go to Dragon Con. There are a lot of really great, there's also lots of bad people that go to Dragon Con. Anyway, what happened to me was I was wearing this cosplay and I was going to go take it off, so I get in the elevator, and if you've never been in a Dragon Con elevator before, Dragon Con elevators are packed. So we are all standing this close to each other, and this guy is standing in front of me, and he looks at me like this. He goes, "Nice. Fuck you. These boobs aren't for you. They're for me." It's not really a horror story, but it's a thing that happened that I didn't appreciate. Like, I know my boobs look nice, but they're not for you. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you want to support the channel directly, you should check out my Patreon, where you'll get some exclusive content. And if you didn't already watch the animated horror stories from this year, you should check that one out, because I worked really, really hard on it. But if you're just watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, or sending the video to a friend or your mom, or subscribing, please subscribe, then you're supporting the channel too. And hey, it's October, and that means that in your state, early voting has probably opened, and you should go do that, because early voting is so much better than going on actually election day. But if you're just planning on going election day, remember that I'm pretty sure your work has to legally give you time off to go vote. So make sure you go vote. Everybody go vote. It is so important. Oh my God. And a big thank you to my newest big support tier patrons: Venefice, Windamore Atelier, Wafflewa, Dot Caffrey, Jeannie Beanie, and Rula Mia. Thanks so much for watching. Bye. I need water. Really? Bucket. Y'all, these spelling mistakes and grammar are really making this hard to read. Okay. I have to get my cat out of the closet.